Greetings to everyone, friends. Today we are talking in as much detail as possible about passports for Ukrainians abroad, because the new changes that are already on the horizon could drastically limit access to Ukrainian passports, and maybe you should even consider renewing your passport if it is expiring in the next few years. That's what I would say. Let's imagine a situation. For example, your passport expires, I don't know, in a year. You make an appointment at the consulate, you come in, and you hear that they won't issue you a passport. They refuse you. Without any explanation, or with some formal explanations that don't give you any way out, and you don't know how to solve the situation. And in fact, this is already happening. In many European Union countries, this applies to Poland, Germany, the Czech Republic, France, Spain, any country basically, regardless of where you are. Because, let me remind you, Ukrainian consulates and all institutions that issue passports for Ukrainians are still governed directly from Ukraine. So, for about 3,000 Ukrainians across Europe, the issue has not been resolved. They handed over the passports, and soon this may affect even more Ukrainians. And that's even though, let's be honest, most people haven't gotten a second passport there yet. Because many people only got their passports after the introduction of visa-free travel with the EU, and that was at the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. So, in theory, these people's passports will expire at the end of 2027 or at the beginning of 2028. That's where the majority of Ukrainians are, yes, with passports. Now add to this bill number 13,673, which is already under consideration in the Verkhovna Rada. It hasn't been adopted yet. We discussed it separately with you. The link will be in the description under this video. So, but if this draft law passes the Verkhovna Rada and is signed by Zelensky, then in fact, a criminal case could be opened against you. A criminal proceeding will be opened in absentia automatically, and this will block the provision of any consular services. And let me remind you that according to this draft law, one of the points is that if you do not meet the deadlines, which can be additionally set by a separate resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. If you do not return to Ukraine within these deadlines, you may face up to 5 years in prison or fines of up to 51,000 hryvnias. So, today there will be a complete practical analysis of who is at risk, why refusals happen, what to do about it, and how to protect yourself. That means in the second half of the video, there will be a practical guide that each of you can use. And all the links to all the sources, everything I talk about today, will also be in the description under this video. So, here's what the situation looks like at the moment. First of all, the mobilization law has established that Ukrainians abroad who are liable for military service are required to update their military registration data. Without updated data, men aged 18 to 60 cannot receive consular services. That means you can only get a domestic or international passport if your information is up to date with the Military Enlistment Office. In practice, consulates require electronic military registration documents. Without it, they refuse to accept passport applications and also deny any other consular services. At the same time, the legal invalidity of the electronic military registration document is not directly specified as a reason for refusal in the law, but consulates still refuse. Thus, even, not exactly breaking the law, but just making up new rules that were never implemented or passed by the Verkhovna Rada, for example. And what's worse, most likely, the court will also consider such a refusal justified by analogy with legal norms. They'll mention the war in Ukraine and say everyone must update their military registration data. So, in fact, for Ukrainians living abroad, for men between 18 and 60, this is a gray area. When they refuse without a clear legal reason, but it's extremely difficult to appeal this, and sometimes it's extremely expensive. According to the new restrictions from January 16, 2026, since the law number 45,026 on multiple citizenship came into force, which expands the grounds for refusal of consular services. Among them are persons against whom criminal proceedings have been opened in Ukraine or a court verdict has come into force. They cannot receive consular services. That is, even before the beginning of 2026, this wasn't the case, and in fact, hardly anyone talked about it at all. And this, by the way, answers the question of whether Ukrainians living abroad have the right to talk about what is happening in Ukraine. Because in the comments, you can very often see narratives like, you're sitting there abroad, so just stay there and live there. You have nothing to do with Ukraine and you have no right to say anything. Come back to Ukraine and then you can say something. But we see that in practice, it doesn't really work that way. Because in fact, all the decisions and actions taken by the Ukrainian authorities today directly affect, as we can see, the lives of every Ukrainian living abroad. And in fact, the Ukrainian authorities can restrict the rights of their citizens abroad and influence their lives, their everyday lives, even their ability to receive citizenship, foreign citizenship, whether it's Polish, German, Czech, it doesn't matter. And by the way, if you want me to make a video about this, be sure to write in the comments if there's enough interest. I'll also make a video about this, how the Ukrainian authorities can influence obtaining citizenship in any other country. Next, the connection with Bill 13,673, which we actually talked about. If you've seen that video, then you already understand what I'm getting at. If you haven't seen it, then after watching this video, I recommend you check it out. Next, to put it briefly right now, so you don't lose the context. Bill 13,673 provides for criminal liability for people liable for military service who have violated the period of stay abroad. Fines range from 34 to 51,000 hryvnias, or from 3 to 5 years of imprisonment, and proceedings can be initiated in absentia and without your presence. And in fact, many people say, because under that video there are also many comments, many people say that no, this can't be, the law does not have retroactive effect, and so on. Friends, if this is shocking, in my opinion, I can't even call it anything else. If draft law 13,673 is somehow miraculously adopted in Ukraine, then with just one resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, with a single stroke of the pen, new conditions can be created, let's say, for the creation of new offenses even after the adoption of this law. For example, after the adoption of this law, the Cabinet of Ministers resolution, if I'm not mistaken, number 57 can be rewritten for the 50th time. And in it, for example, information is simply added that all men aged 25 to 60 who live abroad, and for example, those who left the country during martial law, that is, since February 24, 2022, are required to return to Ukraine within 90 days after the publication of this resolution. That's it. And after that, a new countdown begins. The 90 days start. You can live abroad for 90 days without any problems. After that, you still have 30 days to return. It's like an extra month, right? If you don't return after that, then a new period starts, which means you've already committed a new offense. After the adoption of this law, and in fact after the adoption of the updated resolution number 57. And that's it. So theoretically, you can do anything you want. And you can harm millions of Ukrainians living abroad either by fining them or opening criminal cases, right? And this can further lead to deprivation of property, restrictions on consular services, and create a situation where millions of Ukrainians abroad might legally be unable to return to Ukraine. Because right away, they would have to deal with the courts. So this is all just a theoretical situation, right? Because this bill hasn't been passed yet. But I just want to emphasize once again that anything can be done legally, and all of this can be pushed through if there is the will. But let's hope that no one will have such a desire. Now let's connect the two facts after such a thorough explanation. The first fact, Law 4500 2.9, which is actually about multiple citizenship, states that it is already forbidden to provide consular services to those who have a criminal case opened against them. And the second fact is draft law number 13,673. Theoretically, I emphasize again, it is possible to open a criminal case in absentia against a huge number of Ukrainians who live abroad. And as a result, if 13,673 is adopted and the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine sets a general period of stay for Ukrainians abroad, getting a passport will automatically become impossible for such Ukrainians. It simply won't be possible to get it until you return to Ukraine. Even if you have never broken any law, and this is actually the most sensitive part of this topic. And I want to emphasize for the 20th time that this is only a theoretical possibility. We're just considering the possible scenarios that might await us. In order to prepare for this now and sleep peacefully, even if something happens and it gets passed. But before that, who is specifically at risk? The first group is men aged 18 to 60 without up-to-date military registration data. And even now there are refusals at the consulate when trying to get a passport. The second group is men with expired military registration documents or without updated data in the Reserve Plus system. A refusal is also given even if there are legal grounds for staying abroad. You need to update your information. The third group is all military personnel. Those who left legally, but only if Bill 13,673 is adopted. Because after the initiation of an in absentia criminal case, you will automatically be refused any consular services. The fourth group is women and children. Right now there are no restrictions at all, but in principle I think there won't be any in the future either. So the group of women and children is completely and fully protected. And the fifth group is men with legal grounds for staying abroad. Theoretically, they have the right to services. But in practice, they face problems because of the requirement for military registration data if it is not updated. But this issue is also very easily resolved. Next, moving on. How can you check your status right now? First of all, is there a criminal case against you in Ukraine? Because situations can be different. Of course, for most Ukrainians today, this doesn't concern them at all, but if you need to, you can check yourself in the Unified Register of Pretrial Investigations. It is closed to public access, but you can use the services of any lawyer in Ukraine, and they have access, they can check it. Because a lawyer has the right to make such requests. Within 5 working days, they receive the information. The second option is through the Unified State Register of Court Decisions on the website reester.court.gov.ua. All the links will be in the description. You can see if any court decisions are in your name there. It is public and free, just without details. And the third option is through the Wanted Persons Registry on mvs.gov.ua. It checks whether you are wanted at all. Not the Military Enlistment Office's so-called wanted status, which legally is not even considered wanted status, but actual wanted status. Again, this is probably relevant for a very small number of Ukrainians living abroad, maybe among my subscribers. And among the viewers, there probably aren't any people who currently have any criminal cases against them. But again, if you need to, check it or pass it on to friends who might theoretically need to check this. The second check is to see the status of your electronic military registration documents. Actually, they are obtained through the military registration account on the website reserve.army.gov.ua or through the app Reserve Plus. People liable for military service must update their information in the electronic cabinet. If you haven't done this yet, you need to do it online without returning to Ukraine. First of all, in order to use consular services. By the way, if you want an episode about how to behave at the consulate and what consequences there might be for Ukrainians interacting with Ukrainian consulates abroad and what this could lead to. If you also want a detailed analysis, for me to do research and provide you with everything, including specific sources of information, and with some step-by-step instructions, write about it in the comments as well. I'll check, and if there are a lot of comments, I'll cover this topic too. But I don't know if it will be interesting for my viewers. In fact, many people worry that if they download Reserve Plus and so on. In fact, updating your military registration data today doesn't mean you have to go directly to the military enlistment office and no one will grab you. It's just a confirmation that your contact information is up to date And for Ukrainians living abroad, as time has shown, there is absolutely no threat from this as of today. Yes, many people were hesitant to install Reserve Plus and similar programs. But in fact, there is no threat. I don't want to encourage anyone to do anything, whether to download Reserve Plus or not. That's your personal decision. Simply put, time has shown it's been over a year already. Yes, since Reserve Plus has existed, it's probably been almost 2 years now since Reserve Plus was created. Have shown that nothing and no one can do anything about Ukrainians living abroad. Yes, although there are a lot of theories and conspiracies. But again, they don't collect any data there that could be used against you, yes. And even if you enter something incorrectly there, like your home address, it's unlikely that anyone will actually be able to check it. That's it. So, well, that's just the information. That verification as such can't really be done. Yes, no one will be able to send you a summons abroad either. That's it. And the third check is the validity period of your passport. Check it today. And if there are less than 6 months left, I advise you to act immediately. Renew it, get it either through DP document or through the consulate. There is absolutely no difference. And I'll say this, the situation with consular services can improve or worsen at any moment. So, if your passport is about to expire, it's better to renew it. And remember a simple truth. It's better to download Reserve Plus and get a new passport for 10 years than not to download Reserve Plus, have your passport expire, and then not be able to do anything at all. Plus, on top of all this, the situation with consular services could also get worse. Because honestly, if you look at it, everything is more or less okay right now. It could be much worse. Next, what should you do if you've already been denied consular services? 5 main steps. First, demand a written refusal. Contact the consular office with a written request to provide a refusal stating the specific legal grounds. An oral refusal means nothing legally. A written one is a document you can work with further. The second step is a lawyer's request. Involve a lawyer who specializes specifically in consular matters. An official lawyer's request is a separate legal tool, and the consulate is also obliged to respond to it. The third step is an appeal. The lawsuit is filed with the District Administrative Court of the City of Kiev. Even if you are physically abroad, you can do this through a representative or a lawyer. This is a real mechanism, and there are precedents of successful appeals. When people, through such requests and appeals, had their access to consular services restored, even in situations where this shouldn't have happened. The fourth step is submitting an application. Submitting an application to the Ukrainian Ombudsman, Dmytro Lubinets, the Commissioner for Human Rights. He accepts complaints from citizens abroad. The website will also be in the description. This is a completely free service. You can submit requests if you believe your human rights have been violated. This also applies to more than just passports. And the fifth step is if your passport expires and you've already been denied. Contact the local migration service of the country where you are staying, any country. Explaining your situation with the documents is grounds for extending your residence permit in most European Union countries. This doesn't solve the passport problem, but it gives you time. That is, for example, you won't be deported. And this is very important, especially now that some countries have started canceling and changing the status of Ukrainian citizens. Next, checklist. What you should do right now to protect yourself. There are also 5 main steps. Regardless of your situation, there are 5 steps you should take. First, check the expiration date of your passport. As we already mentioned, if it's expiring, get yourself a second one. In Ukraine, it is allowed to have 2 international passports. And by the way, I'm surprised that many people don't know this at all. If you have one passport, you can get another one. Next, second, go to reservearmy.gov.ua or to Reserve Plus and check the status of your electronic military registration document. Again, this is if you need to go and get a passport if yours is expiring. If it's already really critical for you, well, you'll have to do it. There's no other way. But again, I'm not urging anyone to do anything. Now, people will start writing in the comments that I'm encouraging someone to download Reserve Plus and saying that I've sold out to someone. No, you just won't get anything done without it. You won't get your passport. But in fact, if you want to get a passport, you'll have to update your information online without returning to Ukraine. Third, check the register of court decisions. Check if there are any court decisions in your name, because maybe you'll even download Reserve Plus, but if you have some criminal case against you, you'll be denied access to consular services. Then you'll have a double problem. Fourth, check the Wanted Persons Registry at mvs.gov.ua. The link will also be in the description. And fifth, if you have doubts about your status, consult a lawyer who specializes in mobilization law. It's better to know this in advance. That's it. And I'll leave the Telegram contact of a trusted lawyer of mine from Ukraine. His name is Volodymyr. I'll just leave the contact. This is not an advertisement, it's just that in previous videos, many people asked for the number of a lawyer who provides online consultations. So I'll just leave it. If you need it, use it. If you don't need it, look for another lawyer on your own. That's it, because we understand that these are paid services. But I think it's better to pay once and get a consultation for a small amount of money. And sleep peacefully, knowing what's actually going on with you. That's it. In fact, these are 5 main steps that need to be taken. In conclusion, friends, the situation with passports for Ukrainians abroad is already complicated. But there may be a situation when things get much more complicated. And what I'm talking about now will seem like child's play. So, the good news is that Bill 13,673 has not been passed yet. That's it. But again, this doesn't mean that it won't be passed in 3 months, or in half a year, or in a year. Well, we don't have, let's say, that kind of certainty. And right now, you can't be sure about anything at all. So, if you have the opportunity to get a second passport that would also be valid for 10 years, it's better to do it now. If you get a passport now, it will actually be valid until 2036, and honestly, that's quite a solid period. Even for obtaining citizenship in another country, especially if you have already been abroad for several years. And again, I want to emphasize, if you want me to go over the pitfalls, first of all, in obtaining citizenship in other countries, and about how Ukrainian laws can create obstacles for you when obtaining another citizenship, write in the comments and I will definitely go over it. If you found it interesting, if it was useful for you, I would appreciate your likes, subscriptions, and comments. Subscribe. First of all, I post new content here every day for Ukrainians living abroad all over the world. Sometimes we discuss the news. Now I'm switching, as those who have been following me for a long time can see, I'm switching to a different format. I'm switching to an analytical format with some serious in-depth analysis because I understand that today there is much more demand for this than just for ordinary news. So if you're enjoying these new formats, let me know as well. I'd be very happy to read your comments. Thank you all. See you.